Alright guys, so we're gonna go ahead and do a quick installation of vCenter on the machine that you would have created, and this would have been the third machine. I'm actually using a clone or link clone of my gold image, so it's gonna take me a little while. I'd use that two, and this will be the third machine that I'm using. So I would recommend that at least give 4 GB of memory. You could go with more than one processor, so I've actually gone with more than one. I would recommend also in the settings, you simply go ahead and add the folders and also enable the auto login. So we're just going to go ahead and add the folder. I'd previously added it, so I'm just going to go ahead and do a quick removal of it, and then I'm going to add it again just to show it to you guys. So map it as a drive in your Windows guest environment. So go to browse to the folder location, and then you can name it whatever you'd like to. For convenience, I'm just going to name it ISOs, and that way if I need to browse to it through command prompt, I'll be able to do that as well easily. Alright, so this is going to take a little while to complete the installation, and let's just go through it. So, okay, so now it's allowing me to go ahead and log in, and I'm just gonna go ahead and for the first time I'm logging as administrator, so I'll have to confirm the password, or rather create a password here. Oops, looks like I made a mistake, so we're just gonna go ahead and do it again. Now keep an eye out on the time. Right now that was 4:15, so the total installation took me a little while, so depending on your machine that will be the case. So the password's been changed. Now once we go in there, we would definitely need to change the computer name, and of course I would recommend to change your static IP address as well. As it says, this is the first time running this machine, so obviously it's going to take some little time. So there you go. We're in. Right, so if I browse to that folder now, you'll see that all the files are there, but if I click on the ISO, I'm not able to launch it. So again, I would recommend that you install the Power ISO, and and then we can change the computer name as well. Keep that in mind, okay? Right, and while it's doing that, we're just gonna go ahead and enable the auto login as well. Okay, and what that will do is anytime we do a reboot, it would actually allow us to go ahead and auto login without having to type that in over and over again. Right, so just let's install the Power ISO. It's not going to take a long time. It's a very small application, so probably will take a minute or two tops, probably less than that. Alright, well, there you go. It's already completed. And we're just going to associate the ISO with it. So now if it's going to launch the page for our Power ISO, and just close it. You don't really need it. And if you notice now that these are associated with Power ISO, so when you double click on them, you'll be able to launch it. So I'll recommend that you double click on it, and we don't need a license for it because we're just doing it for test purposes. So you continue, and then of course I would recommend to extract it. I mean, you don't want to mount it and then run it, so choose your C colon, and then I'm just gonna name it the folder vCenter right here, so it actually automatically extracts it to that particular folder. So while that's extracting, I'm just going to go ahead and install Firefox. As I said, I would recommend installing Firefox and also the Flash plugin prior to installing the vCenter itself. Sometimes it gives an error. I've noticed with the Internet Explorer or adding Firefox afterwards. So I would recommend doing that initially, so to avoid any issues in future. Let's just give ourselves some elbow room. So there we go, expanded, and let's move it there. Alright, so install Firefox, and then make sure you don't untick it, and this will make sure your default browser will be Firefox instead of Internet Explorer. Right, and then once we launch Firefox, it's going to ask us whether or not we want to import our favorites. Well, we don't have any to begin with, so just press don't import. Right, so just install the Flashware. Now this is going to be a test environment, so we don't really have to worry about updating the Flash. So when it asks you, just choose never. You'll see that in a second. And of course you should have closed Firefox because you want to, otherwise Flash wouldn't install. So there you go. So just click never and then done. So now the Flash player and the Firefox have been installed, and it looks like the files have been extracted as well. So we're just gonna go to C colon, and we saved it in the folder vCenter. I'm not sure what you saved it in, but you go there, click on auto run. Well, usually in this environment we're gonna get the DNS and our default gateway to be the exactly same thing. Usually when we're installing vCenter, it's actually on a domain join network, so you would have ideally another box that would be running your DC, and then by the way, as I said, like the IP address would be the same for DNS and also the default gateway in this particular installation. So yeah, let's not forget, let's go ahead and switch off the firewall, and we're just gonna go into control panel and switch off the firewall. All right. and our computer domain suffix is local domain. So that would be whatever computer name we had given. We're going to change this to something more reasonable, and then that'll be dot local domain. Okay. Alright, so let's go ahead and change that computer name. And for convenience, I'm just going to call it vCenter. Alright, it's errored out for the simple reason being that I've already chosen that and there shouldn't be any conflict of net BIOS name. So I'm just gonna call this vCenter2 instead, because I already previously used vCenter1, or rather vCenter. Right, so since we had already enabled auto login, we won't have to log in now. It's just gonna go ahead and restart the computer. You'll hear my dog barking in the back. I really can't stop her. Oh, it looks like somebody's come over. That's the reason why. Alright, so there you go, we are logged in. I'm just gonna wait for it to finish configuring our desktop. So there you go. We're gonna launch our go to that folder vCenter or wherever you have extracted it. My computer is a little bit slow. It's probably because of the fact that this is a third link clone. So right now they're showing there's no prerequisites when we click on the simple install. And usually if there are any prerequisites, they will be shown there. We're going to close out all of these windows that we really don't need. Now we can actually go ahead and install all of these components one by one, which would really be annoying. And if you look at the prerequisites, there are prerequisites for that. So vCenter has the prerequisite of SSO and the inventory service. And then if we click on the inventory service, we'll see that the prerequisite is SSO. And of course there are none for SSO and so forth. So we can go ahead and install each one of them, but we don't really have to do it that way. We'll do the simple install just to make our lives easier. And a lot of times, and then our computer name is vCenter2, keep that in mind. And when it asks for the domain, if it does, then it will be vCenter2.local domain. So we're just going to do a simple install, so click on that. Now the other thing is we can install the vSphere client, and it will be shown over there in the background once we completely do an install. So this would be a fat or a thick client, if you may, as opposed to the the web client, which is considered a thin client. So I personally prefer the Sphere client as opposed to the browser one. So but for now we'll just go ahead and do install of simple install. Now let's just give us a big room here, some more, move that over there. Now a lot of times these pop-ups that happen, they actually happen in the background rather than the foreground. It's the most annoying thing about VMware. So here it is, use FQDN instead of the IP address, and as I said, the FQDN would be the computer name .local domain, since it's not currently a domain joined server. Alright, so press next. Again, if you see, the domain name that is given to the vSphere server is vSphere.local. So keep that in mind, because in future when we have to log in, we're going to be using the username administrator at vSphere.local, and then the administrator is going to be, the username is going to be administrator, and whatever password you give. For consistency, I will say just use the same password and keep the same basic stuff right now. Now, do give yourself at least an hour and a half to 2 hours, because it is going to be a long install. Except if you have an SSD, it might shave off another half hour from it. Now, I would advise to keep the windows separate, because as I said, a lot of times the pop-ups happen when you have to, it's for call for an action, maybe yes, or you know, SHA, like SHA fingerprint and stuff like that, or next. So keep the windows minimized. Now you can also come here and go into your task manager as well to see whatever is being installed. And then whatever is installed, it will actually appear here under all programs VMware. So right now only one component has been installed. And if it sticks there for a long time, don't worry about it. Just go into your task manager and see whatever is running. And as I said, like a lot of times stuff would be there where you have to you know, click on something, which basically is call for an action, and then that dialog box would be stuck behind these windows, so you wouldn't be able to see. So don't go ahead and close your computer or anything if you're not seeing any movement, like any progress. Just come into your taskbar, task manager rather, and see what's going on over there. If there are any other open windows, or it will show as running. Right, so if you also notice in the taskbar, it's actually flashing. Sometimes it flashes, sometimes it doesn't. So that was a new thing that came up. So it's just flashing right now in the task manager, and it's all in the taskbar, and it's also showing it was showing in the task manager as well. So keep an eye out on that if need be. Otherwise, the installation is pretty straightforward. There you go. So that's the pop-up that I was talking about. So had this window had been there, you wouldn't have been able to see, and you'll be sitting there for 4 or 5 hours thinking it actually takes that long, but that's not true. So as I said, these pop-ups don't happen in the forefront or the foreground. They actually happen in the background. I'm periodically gonna keep on pausing it, so because I don't want to take 2 hours, make a video presentation of 2 hour long. So I'm gonna keep on pausing it, so you'll see that the time has actually skipped. So if you'll keep an eye out on my time clock over there at the bottom, we started at 4:15. Now it just jumped to 4:41. So whatever inventory is being or component is being installed, then it would actually tell you. Right now it's installing the inventory service. So that means the other components, the previous components, have actually been installed, the SSO and the web client. The vSphere server is the one that it's going to take the longest. So the vCenter. Alright, so the license key, you don't have to worry about it. Just go ahead and click next, and it will go into the evaluation mode as it says. This is a SQL database. If you already had one, it was domain joined and you had a SQL database, this is where you'll pick that. But since we don't have it, we're just going to do a quick install of the Microsoft SQL 2008 Express instance, the Express edition. So click next. And you can use, if it was domain join, you could actually use the local session account. You would have logged in through one of the ESXi admin group accounts. So for now, we're just going to take that off since it's not a domain join. We could leave it as well, but why bother when we can control stuff? So administrator, and then give it the password that whatever you like. Again, as I recommend for these demos or a test environment, just use that. And there you'll see vcent2.localAdmin as well. And we're not going to be running more than 2,000 virtual machines, so don't have to worry about it. Just press next. This is gonna take some time now, so if you want to go grab a coffee or something, go right ahead, but just press yes for now. Alright, so now it's installing this SQL components, the support files for it. Again, keep this minimized, because then any type of notification or a call to action you won't be able to see, because it's going to do a pop under as over a pop over. All right. We can't close that one, so keep an eye on the time. You'll see how long it's taken me to install it. The video is only 47 minutes. It's finished over here, but it actually took me a very long time to do an installation. If you look at the time, so it says, it gives me a successful message. So good. Now you've successfully installed the vCenter, or at least I have, and you have to install it now. So if you go to VMWARE and all the components been installed, we go to the web SSO, or rather the web client, and you can go ahead and log in there. Now I'm doing a voiceover, so what that is the first time I made this video, none of the audio got recorded for some reason. There was an issue, or somehow it just didn't record. Anyway, so now we're on the local host, and we're just gonna add this exception. This is a certificate that we had learned about previously, so we just go ahead and get the certificate. There you go, and permanently store it as an exception. And now the website will load. So as I was saying, the reason why I mentioned that, I'm actually recording the voice over. I'm doing a voiceover, so somewhere it might be that I'm either talking, audio is not going to jive to sometimes what I'm doing some things. So I apologize about that. Right, so good thing that we installed Firefox and the Flash before, so now it just makes it so much more convenient for us. Now I believe that when I had done this video presentation, the first go, for some reason, it just did not want to work. And this, by the way, is if you want to add a plugin, download and add a plugin. Not that we need to do it right now. So that what happens is, if you look at it, it's grayed out right now. If you check mark it, and if it was domain join, we could just click on that and it will take our credentials and log us in there. In a production environment or a normal environment, what we'd really do in our AD, create an ESXi admin group, and then members of that admin group would log into their Windows boxes, and then you can just click on that, use Windows credentials, and then it would have logged you in. Now, I would recommend using administrator at vSphere.local to gain access, but for the first time, unfortunately, for some reason, it didn't allow me. And we can also install this if you wanted to, just to check it out. In the previous XP demo, the vSphere demo that you installed on the XP, you had already done that. But this would be on the vSphere or vCenter side of the things. So while it's doing that, I'm just gonna go ahead and install it, because I personally like this as opposed to the web interface, because web interface is browser based, obviously, and it can be very laggy, and it's based on Flash. Okay, so it looks like it's not authenticating me for some reason. So I'm gonna try it again, close the browser, and then do it all over again, or try to log into it again. For some reason, it's the window has shrunk. I'm not really sure why that is the case. Alright, there you go. So, well, oh, okay, it messed up again. Okay, so we're gonna log in as the administrator at vSphere.local. I think the mic is overly sensitive now. Alright, so it's saying initializing, so that means it's gonna let me in this time around. There you go, so I'm logged in, and the installation for the vSphere, the desktop client's already completed as well. So this is a status bar, or rather the alert bar, if you may. So if you click on details right now, it's telling us that the license is expiring in 59 days. Yeah, we already know that, so that's not an issue. You can close that pop-up bar. It's bugging me that I'm not able to view it in full screen. So there you go. So I think it fixed that. Okay, good. So keep in mind, this is a tree view, so everything is in a tree format. So if we go through the vCenter, it will actually allow us to go in and check that. So this is where you'll see the recent task. Anything that you would be performing will be showing there. Running tab is also there, and then failed information would be there as well. Anytime anything is in progress, it should actually show up there. And then at the bottom over there, there's alarms. So it's telling us about some alarm or some notification about it, health alarm. So we're just gonna worry about that later, and we're just gonna go into vCenter, and now we're gonna go in. The steps are, first is, you see, create a data store, authorize, and then add hosts in the data store, and then obviously then virtual machines or what have you. So let's just have a, let's see if it allows me. I know we're going to try to connect to this particular host, so we're going to add that host in there, and we can do that through the vSphere client itself, the desktop client, or we could do that through the web browser, the web client. Now we're currently logged in as a local host. So we're gonna go to our URL that it's supposed to be. So that will be the vcent 2.local domain. So, and then colon, port number is 9443. Right, because we're trying to go to the HTTP. So what we need to do is we need to go to HTTPS. I'm not sure why I didn't forward it. So now you're just going to go ahead and accept that certificate. So if you look, there are two different domain names. So our domain name is actually, instead of using localhost, we're going to use that. And that will be the same domain name that we'll use with the desktop client if we wanted to log in. So we're just going to log in with administrator.vsphere.local and the password. We could actually also log in through the vSphere client as well. As I said, I tried it. It failed for some reason, so I'm just giving you a heads up because that's what had happened when I had done the video. But as I said, I'm doing the voiceover now again, so I'm just pretending that I'm doing it simultaneously. Not really, but I'm just narrating it more, if anything. So I tried it a couple of times. It failed. So just to let you know. And previously when I had tried it with the other host or with the other vServer, it worked, but for some reason it didn't work at this time around. So we're just gonna go ahead and install that certificate. Yeah, it doesn't look like that's gonna do it. As I said, so it gave an error. So I tried it a whole bunch of times, but it didn't work. The only thing that I actually worked for was directly logging into the host. So if you want, you can skip over a couple of minutes, a minute or two into the video. Yeah, sorry about that, guys. I was just trying to demonstrate that you could log in through the desktop client, or you could actually also log in through the web client. So unfortunately, logging to my web client, all my attempts failed, even with the IP address, my FQDN as well. So just to let you know. at least in this particular example, it did. In the other vCenter that I had created, I was successful. I was able to successfully log in there, but for some reason I wasn't able to do that in this one. Alright, so in that over there I just installed the certificate. There you go. So the pop-up was under there, so couldn't figure it out. I don't know why it does it. VMware is annoying like that. Yeah, it was throwing me in a loop, so I didn't realize. I'm not sure why, but I guess I hadn't logged out or pressed OK on the certificate. So anyways, it didn't log in, so I wasn't able to log in there. I guess I tried it one more time. So just to check the IP. Alright, I had forgotten to make the IP address static, so it was still on the DHCP, but that wasn't the reason why I wasn't able to log in using the desktop client. But keep in mind that when you are doing your installation, make sure you actually change the computer name, and I would say before you change the computer name, make sure you make it a static IP as opposed to a dynamic one, at least for the vCenter. So I just use the same IP address that was assigned by DHCP, and the DNS will be the same thing as a default gateway, at least in this example, because it's given by VMware workstation itself, because we're not domain joined, right? If we were in the AD environment, then we would have a different DNS and a default gateway. Alright, so it looks, I'm gonna try it again for logging into 3, and it doesn't look like that I'm gonna be able to log in again. Okay, so we'll just use the web interface for now. We'll close out that pop-up box over there, and yeah, it didn't let me. So we're gonna go into vCenter. We're gonna go to the data center, and we're going to create our first data center. So you click on that button over there, and then that's an add, so it will ask you the name of the data center. So it gives you the data center name right away, so you can choose whatever you want. I'm just going to call it data center 1, and it's asking me to choose the vCenter, like where this data center is going to be located, on which server. So it's vCenter 1, that's a server that we have, so we're adding the data center, or creating the data center in there. And once that's been completed, it will allow us to add it. So we just click on that, since it's a tree view environment, and there you go. So it's gonna take you and allow you to add a host, so, or a cluster. So we're just gonna go ahead and create a host right now. Remember, there were two types of clusters, right? There was Hyper-V cluster, and then there was guest clustering. So it's actually, if you looked at that environment, it was the host clustering that would have been ESXi clustering. So that address is 159. The other IP address, the other ESXi that I have was 193. So they're on two different subnets. We're just gonna add one in this particular example, and then I'll show you guys. So had it been that it was our DNS was up and we had actually added the hosts, DNS host A records in our DNS, I would have been able to just call it ESXi1 or whatever the computer name I would have given to that particular host and add it. But obviously I won't be able to do this in this scenario, but I still tried to see if it actually resolves it. And then unfortunately it did not auto resolve it. And so we're just gonna go ahead and add it as with the IP address instead. So if we go back where I had put ESXi, we're just gonna put the IP address of that host, which is 192.168.127.159. Now if we had a proper URL, we would have been able to do that, like FQDN, like just, and then I would have resolved to that IP address. So we just press accept yes. So that's a host summary. Just press next. We're gonna go through the license, which is we don't have one, so we're just gonna use evaluation mode. Click next. We could enable the lockdown mode. What that does is no one would be able to use SS, or rather the vSphere client, to log into it. So if I were to do it right now, try to log directly into the host, ESXi host, I will be able to do that without any issues, because I haven't enabled the lockdown mode. If I want to enable it so that nobody would be able to log in using a vSphere client, then what I would actually have to do is I would have to click on that enable lockdown mode. So if you notice, it's actually loading the inventories and everything, and I'm going to be successfully able to log in to the vSphere, to the ESXi host, this particular one, using the vSphere client. Okay, so if we click enable lock mode, I shouldn't be able to. Alright, so if you look at the bar on the right hand side on the screen, it's still going on. So if I were to, while it's going on, it's not 100%. Although I had clicked on lockdown mode, I would still be able to log in. So that's one thing that you'll have to keep in mind, that while you're enabling the lock-on mode as an administrator, somebody will be able to log in. So just keep that in mind. So I believe there's a maintenance mode for ESXi that we can put the server in the maintenance mode, so that when we're doing anything or making any changes, people are not able to log in and do that. So you see I was able to log in. So there you go. So 80% of the data center has been completed. One host was actually added in there, but the host is not going to show completely. It's going to show disconnected, although there are no issues with the host whatsoever, for the simple reason being, if you look at the right hand side under recent tasks, it's actually showing that only 80% is complete, right? And there's another thing that's going on that indicates if it's running in circles, that it's still completing it. The task hasn't been completed 100%, and that's what it is showing over there as well. Again, 80%. So if we look at a completed task, it shows a check mark beside it as well. Completed gives us more information about it. Now the data center has been completed as well. So in a minute, this will change into, there would be no red mark or red explanation there or whatever it is showing. So there you go. So there it is. So the host has been added as well, and it says 100%. Now if I were to try to log in with SSO desktop or the single vSphere login client, vSphere client there, if I were to try to log in again into the same ESXi host, it would not allow me, because now the ESXi host has been 100% completed. The configuration has been 100% completed, and the lockdown mode has been enabled. By the way, I'm just showing you this as an extra step. Our vCenter client was already installed We're just configuring it now, or rather, we have configured it. We're just testing it now. I was just checking why the vSphere client was responding so slowly, so I was just wondering what happened there. Okay, so now it's up there. So if I try to log in now, you'll notice that it won't allow me, or at least it shouldn't. It should give me some kind of error. I don't know if it actually gives an intelligent error. I believe it just gives us a templated error that you don't have permission, because the host should really be managed from a centralized location, like a vSphere web client or vSphere desktop client. So if you look in the host now, so the host is there. You can add a virtual machine if you wanted to, and there are the actions about it, so you can actually manage the host, connect, disconnect, or even restart or reboot the host, put in a maintenance mode, etc. And if you go home, if you click on the home, it will just take you there. Then you go into the vCenter, or you click on the home tab. It actually gives you all the various things that you can do, create VMs, and also through templates as well. So it actually takes you directly into the data center. And then if you scroll to the bottom over there, you should also see add a host, or then further into it, if you go, you'll see into the host itself at the bottom to add a virtual machine. There you go, create a new virtual machine. And of course we'll look at that in the future, and maybe in class or through videos, whatever.